We are here in week 16, or completing week 16, and so we're going to go over the games and some of the stats as we close into the last 2 weeks of this 32-team franchise, season 11. So starting off with the schedule, we'll go to week 16. We see Andrew Luck being able to have a comeback victory against the Minnesota Vikings. So this is the number 1 versus the number 2 overall pick. We see Andrew Luck with 137 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception, whereas RG3 had 227 yards, 2 TDs, and 2 interceptions. And we have Tim Hightower getting about 86 yards. Really good for him, whereas the running game was a little bit shallow with the Vikings. So this is a game where the Vikings really needed this win in order to stay competitive in the NFC North, but this loss definitely hampers their progress, whereas the Rams are still somewhat in the outskirts of the NFC playoffs, kind of like the Vikings are now. That 7-8 is not an ideal record, meaning that the best they can do is 9-8, which I don't think is going to be good enough for the playoffs. Then you have the Houston Texans holding on to their, actually not holding on to, but tying the Colts for top of the division. This has been a very competitive division between the Texans and the Colts this season. It all started with Jake Locker being replaced by Tavares Jackson. We can see taking care of the ball well, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a perfect QBR rating, 13 of 16 passing for Jackson, 115 yards rushing for Spiller with the touchdown, whereas Chris Johnson had a very abysmal performance with 21 yards. Brady Quinn doing a decent performance with 262 yards, 3 TDs, and 1 interception, but that was not good enough. Both teams are likely going to be in the playoffs. It's just going to be depending on which team is going to be the division winner. Then we have the Tennessee Titans falling to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jaguars are the number 1 worst team in the league, likely number 1 overall pick. So all they're going to do is play themselves out of the first overall pick, which this is the 2013 draft, so there's not really a consensus number 1 overall pick. They drafted Matt Khalil last year, so it's not like they're going to go with a Luke Jokel or Eric Fisher unless they want to put someone on the right side of the line. But anyways, they're still the worst in the league at 4-11. And you have 3 TDs, 184 yards. Colt McCoy playing well in his opportunity to be a starter. We see Freeman with 201 yards, 2 TDs. He got injured, I believe, and so Leftwich came in. Stewart only 33 yards, but DeMarco Murray with 101. Then we have a tight, narrow victory here for the Green Bay Packers, coming through with a 16-14 victory. And we see Stafford with 234 yards, a TD. Starks and Hillman only combined for about 50-some yards, whereas the Cardinals have 212 yards and 2 TDs from Andy Dalton, but it was not good enough. Darren Sproles, 27 yards. Dwayne Brown, 23. So all very similar between these two teams. Solid defensive performance from both, keeping the score low. But Packers getting that 9-6 record, which is huge in the NFC North. Then you have the Oakland Raiders pounding away at the Cincinnati Bengals, delivering a huge victory there for Oakland. 300-yard game for Matt Ryan, 3 TDs and interception. We see a running back by committee there with 3 different running backs getting some carries, 68 yards, 20 and 18. And then you have Marino with 97 yards. And then, of course, Croyle played at the beginning, but since they were getting beat so bad, I ended up putting Brock Osweiler. Because of this game, the Bengals are going to start Osweiler for the last 2 games of the season, just to see what we have in him, because he has not actually been playing that well. 5 of 14. Let's look at his statistics. For the season, I know this White is, so he's 11. He was a 34% completion, only 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. No, he has not started yet, but the time he has played, he has not played well. So we will see how he does as a starter these last 2 weeks. See if he has a potential for a future here with the Bengals, or if John Harbaugh wants to go in a completely different direction. Croyle has been stable for them, but he has not been good enough to take the Bengals past the Browns or the Steelers. Despite the fact I think that the Bengals did they beat Pittsburgh last week? Yeah, they beat Pittsburgh last week, but not enough for having a record to go into the playoffs. Then we've got the Chiefs getting destroyed by the Chargers, going 11-4. We see Rodgers with 313, 4 TDs, fantastic performance. Beanie Wells has not been running as well as Marion Barber, so I might be doing more carries with Barber. Whedon has 125 yards. He has not had that great of a season either, but I mean, who would have thought? We look at his season stats right now: 55% completion, 2,700 yards, 19 of 23. So he's thrown more interceptions this year. Not a solid rookie performance for Whedon. However, the 28-year-old rookie did not have much potential anyways. Richardson, who is actually right now on track to be Rookie of the Year for the AFC. Josh Gordon is projected for the NFC. He is already over 1,100 yards this season. He has only 66 receiving yards, but he has... Does he only have 4 rushing touchdowns? Oh, he's only got 4 rushing touchdowns. But he is carrying the rock very well. And so, but as for a record, they're 4-11. They could actually end up being in contention for the number 1 overall pick, and their pick is with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are getting a gift right there. Now, the Commanders, who have been fighting for an opportunity to be more higher up in the playoffs, defeat the Buccaneers, who have been the number 1 team in the league for quite some time. So we'll see if Tampa Bay sinks now, because I think the 49ers have the same record. The Eagles are close. But those 3 interceptions and no touchdowns from Gabbert really hurt them. 76 yards from McFadden is good, but McFadden is closing in on 2,000 yards. So not the game he was hoping for. It was only 14-21. We see Vic with only 105 yards, 17 yards rushing, but in the absence of Mike Goodson, who's been their starting running back, is it Chris Ivory, got 113 yards and a TD in the victory, keeping the Commanders' season alive. And then you've got the Panthers narrowly losing to the Detroit Lions. Good game there by Tannehill. I mean, the Lions are a more competitive team with Reggie Bush. His injuries at the start of the season were not helpful. Right in the midseason. So he played the first 3 weeks and then was out for about 7 and then returned. And since then, the Lions have been more competitive. But Booker and Tate only getting 66 yards, a TD. And then you have Flacco with 221 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Just not enough to carry the Panthers. And this loss is major for them because they're also trying to contend for a playoff spot. But there's going to be a batch of NFC teams that are 7 and 8 just on the outskirts of the playoffs. And then you've got the Miami Dolphins getting a significant loss there because, again, they're trying to stay in the playoff hunt. So instead of going up to 9-7, they're now... or 9-6, they're now 8-7 because the Bills got 2 touchdowns, 187 yards from Ponder. Deji Karim, who's been having a pretty good season since he became the starter. He had very little action before, and now he is 765 yards, 9 TDs on the year. Fantastic for him. And we look at the other running backs: 505 yards by Williams, 162 yards by McAllister. Thomas hasn't gotten a carry, I don't think, not at all. But Karim has been the 25-year-old as opposed to 29, 33-year-old running back. But you see Newton there. Newton had a good game, but McKnight not carrying the load as well as he could. We see Johnson with 104 yards, McKnight 71 yards receiving. So the Chicago Bears get a commanding victory over the Saints. So right now it's the Bears and the Packers fighting for the NFC North. Neck and neck in that division. Tebow was held to under 100 yards passing and 2 interceptions. Tomlinson, only 47 yards. But the Bears, 212 yards and 3 TDs for Campbell. We see Glenn Coffey and Mark Ingram II getting over 100 yards combined, with Ingram with a touchdown. Eddie Royal was the superstar. I mean, I just chucked it up to him like twice, and he had these 2 long touchdowns. So Eddie Royal really coming through for Chicago here in Week 16. Then we've got the Philadelphia Eagles, who wanted this win. If they got this win, they would have probably been in contention for the number 1 seed over the Buccaneers and the 49ers. But the Giants are fighting for a playoff spot as well. And despite Palmer throwing 2 interceptions to McNabb's 1, Palmer's 4 passing touchdowns carries the Giants to a victory. It was neck and neck the entire time. You can see, Brian Quick with 120 yards, 3 TDs. Ginn, 146 yards, 1 TD. Deshaun Jackson getting some action there, but not as much. It's been mostly Ted Ginn. Let's see. Jackson, what's his stats this year? He is only 708 yards, 11 TDs, where Ted Ginn is at 1458, 13 TDs, Bennett, 582, 129. Decker has not had a catch yet. And Cole Beasley has not had a catch yet. But the Giants keep their playoff hopes alive by defeating the Eagles. That was a must-win game for any 7-7 team, and the Giants did it. Then the Cleveland Browns. I think they started off slow, but Pryor led the comeback. We have a 27-21 victory for the Browns, who I don't know if they've officially clinched it, but they're very close. But Pryor, 1 touchdown, 91 yards, Felix Jones, Pryor, Bell, Ogbonnaya, all getting a chance at running. I mean, Ogbonnaya has not had much like open field runs. He's mostly been the power back. So he's got 4 TDs and 8 yards. So he averages about 2 yards a touchdown. But Felix Jones, 770, 7 TDs. Bell, 371, 6 TDs. Cribbs, I have him as a running back, so I can do trick plays if I want to. I don't really do many of them, though. But Cleveland gets the win they need. Manning and the Seahawks fall 5-10. Really not the season they were hoping for. Like, you look at Marshawn Lynch. I mean, he was supposed to be beast mode. He's 843 yards. And that's, maybe a decent season, but it's not beast mode season. 213 by Ringer. I think Turbin's got 19 yards there. But sad season for the Seahawks, not what they were looking for. Now the Cowboys are on a 4-0 game win streak, and that win streak ends with Denver going 9-6 now with that tight 17-15 game. We see I think what happened was it was 14-7. The Cowboys scored a touchdown late, got the 2-point conversion to take the lead, 15-14, and the Broncos, Bradford, was able to take his team down for a field goal victory. Russell Wilson was doing pretty well with interceptions since he came back. I think he threw 3 in the past 4 games. He threw 2 here in this game, which is not ideal. Peterson did not have as many carries. We see 19 throws by both Wilson and Bradford, but 6 attempts there to run for Peterson, whereas Bradshaw had 14. I guess Peterson was more efficient, but you need more out of Adrian Peterson if you're going to pull off a Dallas Cowboys victory. And they are looking to be another 7-10 team. So we'll see if Dallas again becomes 7-10 like they've done the past 5 seasons. Now this game, I actually might decide to share this as an individual game because it was freaking crazy. It was back and forth. I think the 49ers took the lead early. It was like 14-3 or 21-3 or something like that. I don't know if I can see the. No, I don't think I can see the quarter breakdown in Franchise Editor, or My Franchise Tool. But 475 yards, 6 TDs from Manning. We see 350 yards, 3 touchdowns for Breeze. Look at the performance there. 241 from Dion Butler. This man is crazy fast. 97 speed, 99 acceleration. He's had 716 yards, 10 TDs for the young man, young speedster. Fitzgerald's been on and off. Like, I don't know if he gets injured easily in the game, but we see 981 yards for Edwards. Meacham is kind of the lower performer here. But, the Falcons needed this win. They were 7-7. If they lost this game, they could have been out of the playoffs. And so Peyton Manning literally wills himself back into a 42-38 victory. And we see Edwards getting 119 yards, Meacham 80. And then for the 49ers, James Jones with 167 yards. He's at 842 this season. Bryant's at 643. Jeffrey was injured this season for a while in his rookie season, 453 yards. Jacoby Ford just needs 8 more yards to get him 100. Maybe I need to get him that. Avant, 489. But then also good running game there from Foster, 111 on TD. Drew Brees ran one in as well. I didn't realize how bad the Falcons' running game was, but that's because they were chucking the ball like madman Manning because they needed to throw themselves back into victory, and they did. So Falcons are still in that playoff hunt. And then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers squeaking away a victory here from the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore also led this game for the majority of the time, but Pittsburgh was able to squeak out a victory at the end. Roethlisberger with 188 yards, 2 TDs. We see MJD not having the best running game. Ray Rice doing fantastic, 135 yards, but Colin Kaepernick held under 100 yards passing. And then we have Monday Night Football. Another division rivalry between the Jets and the Patriots, and we see Alex Smith getting 240 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions, but Tom Brady looking perfect, 378 yards, 5 TDs, 0 interceptions. Running game very mediocre for the Patriots, but we know that's not what this team's about. This team's about Tom Brady and these receivers. So we look at Malcolm Kelly, who came over from Pittsburgh. I saw on the screen he has over 1,000 yards receiving and 6 TDs. Andre Johnson closing in on 1,000 yards, just needs 80, and he's at 4 TDs. Brandon Tate at 585. He's their number 2 receiver, 24-year-old. I got to see if they're going to keep Andre Johnson. They might decide to trade him with him getting older. Knox, not really relevant. Hogan. Yeah, Hogan's got 108 yards. And then let's see, where's Pope? Pope has been, how effective? 779 yards. But Brady is over 4,000 now. So that's where he and Manning are over 4,000. There's a chance for a few others to get over that hump. But we see Portis was one factor keeping the Jets in the game. 153 yards, 3 TDs. He had a big breakoff touchdown that really kept him in the game. But they were just not enough to match the Patriots. So here we look at standings. Patriots clinched their one game ahead of San Diego, so they got to try to stay in that number 1 seed. We have Cleveland, who they're 2 games ahead of Pittsburgh, but I guess they have not clinched the playoffs yet. These 2 teams battling it out, Houston and Indianapolis. Denver, I guess, is technically not. I mean, I think that the Chargers there is implying they've won the division, so I guess even if Denver wins 2 games, it doesn't matter, and the Chargers lose 2 games. But Denver's doing well to stay in the playoff hunt. Eagles now are still in command of the NFC East. However, just by 1 game, you got the Commanders and Giants right behind them. The Cowboys losing definitely lost them the chance of being in the playoffs. They needed to keep winning all the way out, and they couldn't. I'm thinking 7-10 is probably what they're going to go. The Bears, Packers, 9-6. I think that the Vikings on a 3-game losing streak kind of canceled themselves out as a playoff team. Lions making up some ground with their abysmal start, and then getting Reggie Bush back is helping them win some games, but they're not really, they're out. And then we have the Buccaneers, 10-5, Falcons getting past the Panthers, and again, they're still neck and neck. There's no guarantee they're going to get a playoff spot, because right now, I think they're the 7th seed now, or they might be, 6th seed, okay. And then you have the 49ers have clinched, and they are I think they're the number 1 team right now. The Rams are in that outskirts of the playoffs. If you look at the league, we've got, Kansas City is now the worst team in the league. Likely number 1 overall pick, which is going to go to the Atlanta Falcons. The Jaguars, Seahawks, Ravens, Titans, all some of the worst teams in the league. Looking at stats, Manning just 600 yards away from 5,000. We'll see if he can get there. And then really the same 5 there. TDs, Brady is over Manning by 2. Interception leaders, it's Whedon, Griffin, Dalton, Manning, Pryor now up there with 20. Rushing, we've got McFadden closing in. He might not get 2,000 yards, but he's very close. One of the closest running backs I've had to getting to 2,000. And then Matthews down by 300 yards. Portis, Ray Rice, Peterson. We look at receiving. Again, Greg Jennings, Calvin Johnson leading the way with Ted Ginn, the solid 3rd. Julio and A.J. Green, the 2 rookies from that 2011 draft class showing up. Even Sanders, I think he was the year before that. Then tackling, and again, whether you care about these as much, I will still just have them on the screen. Ray Edwards, Antro Roll. Very quickly, the rankings. The Falcons and Patriots, number 1 and 2 in offense. And Jacksonville and St. Louis now. That's shocking. I did not expect the Andrew Luck Rams to be that bad. But then you have the Bears being number 1 defense with Houston, San Francisco. Even the Eagles are top 5. And we got the Jets, the Saints, the Panthers, even the Falcons, some of the worst. So coming up, we got 2 more weeks to go. If you like this series, please give a like, subscribe. We'll have other fun videos every now and then, but we are 2 weeks away. I mean, if you have any predictions, I'm happy to hear what they are. But yeah, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.